Welcome to the deep dive. We take source material, strip away all the jargon, and get right to the core knowledge you need. Today's mission is a deep dive into inner engineering. We've got a stack of ancient Sufi texts here, and they lay out this profound spiritual roadmap. And it might sound abstract, but it's got this shocking relevance to our, hyper-connected modern lives. We're looking at two pairs of concepts, firar and tisam, that's fleeing and taking shelter, and halwa and uzla, which is privacy and seclusion.
That's exactly right. And when you approach these terms, especially, for a modern audience, the key thing to get is that this isn't about physical geography.
Right.
We are looking at a radical reorientation of the heart, of the mind. So firar, or fleeing, it isn't running from your bills, it's a philosophical movement.
Okay.
And halwa, or seclusion, it's not just turning off your phone, it's about closing the inner doors of your soul. We want to understand how these two pairs really function together, how they're complementary steps toward knowing the divine essence.
Let's start with the action then. Firar and tisam. Now, firar literally means to run away, but in the Sufi context, the target of the flight is the self, and the destination is the creator.
It's the ultimate journey of displacement. The tradition teaches that this fleeing is a necessary step away from being just a drop of water and instead, plunging into the ocean.
I like that.
Yeah, and the text use this fantastic analogy. They say if you're mesmerized by a piece of glass reflecting the sun, the spiritual imperative is to recognize that that reflection is secondary. The real act of firar is to feel discontent with that reflection and turn directly to the sun itself.
So we're fleeing the limits of the mirror image. This seems to be fundamentally about escaping our own self-absorption, what the texts are calling the carnal dimension.
Exactly.
And the whole basis for this is a scriptural instruction that just says very simply, flee to God.
Absolutely. It's psychological warfare against the ego.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating is that the sources divide the spiritual achievement, into three distinct levels. They recognize that not all flights are equal, not in depth, not in destination.
Okay, so tell us about these travelers. Let's start at the beginning. If you're just starting this journey, who are you and what exactly are you fleeing?
You start with what they call the ordinary people. For them, firar is a flight from moral ugliness, from life-painful messes, to God's forgiveness and favor.
Okay, so they're seeking refuge.
They're seeking refuge from evil deeds, asking for compassion, often using prayers like, "My Lord, forgive me and have compassion on me."
That sounds a lot like repentance, which is critical, but how is this a profound Sufi journey? Why isn't it just, basic ethics or religious practice?
That is a sharp question. The difference is in their destination and their realization. Even at this level, they arrive at the knowledge of God, not just the forgiveness of God. And their realization is profound. They sense this awesome reality that they cannot know God as truly knowing Him requires. That recognition of ultimate unknowability. That awe that is the true destination of their flight. It sets them on a path that goes way beyond just, behavioral ethics.
That distinction is key. Fleeing sin to realize the depth of the divine mystery. That really elevates it. So what about the second group, the ones who are a bit further down the path?
This is the pious, or those near to God. And their flight is much more nuanced. They are fleeing from their own lesser human qualities to the divine attributes.
So not from bad to good, but from good to better.
In a way, yeah. They move beyond basic sensory perception, seeing things only as physical objects, and start discerning with the heart. They understand that every object, every event, manifests the divine name.
So they're no longer satisfied with just the appearance of things. They're actively looking for the principle underneath.
Precisely. They transcend outward ceremonial worship and engage with a deep awareness of its innermost dimension. Their experience is one of continuous movement. The sources say they sail every day for a new ocean of knowing God.
Wow.
Constantly flying up this stairway of ranks. But, and this is important, this ascent is coupled with deep humility. They still tremble with the fear of descending, of, slipping back.
Constant spiritual ascent, but also constant anxiety about keeping that altitude. That sounds exhausting, but incredibly dedicated. Okay, so that brings us to the highest state, the most advanced, the heroes of fleeing. What do they flee when they've already integrated the divine attributes?
This is where the concept gets, dizzying. The heroes of fleeing, having fully grasped the attributes, now flee from the attributes themselves.
Wait, from the attributes?
To the divine being or essence. Think of it this way. Attributes like mercy, justice, power, they're manifestations, they're reflections, concepts. The final step is to flee the concept and seek the pure, unmanifested reality.
I need to pause on that. If the divine attributes are how God reveals himself, How can you flee them without rejecting the revelation? That sounds like a paradox.
It is the ultimate paradox.
Yeah.
They are seeking refuge not from something evil, but from the limits of all conceptual understanding, even divine concepts. Their prayer of ultimate refuge is captured in this just, breathtaking phrase, "I take refuge in you from you."
I take refuge in you from you. They're fleeing the limitation of the manifestation, the you of the attributes, to find shelter in the pure, absolute you of the essence.
You've got it. They are no longer distracted by the shadows of glory. These individuals are described as being completely absorbed, drowned in amazement. They're intoxicated with the wine coming from the source of everything.
So their focus is absolute.
So absolute, so fixed on the ultimate truth, that the sources say nothing can rouse them. Not even the cataclysmic blast of the trumpet of Israfil, which signals the end of the world. Their flight has reached its permanent home.
It sounds like a relentless internal campaign. So if they manage that, if they hold on, what's the ultimate perception they get when they secure tisam, that unbreakable handle?
The outcome is stability and light. The seeker is described as taking hold of the firm, unbreakable handle.
The unbreakable handle.
And this handle, this trust in God, it fundamentally changes the relationship with the universe.
Because God is described in the text as the guardian of those who believe, right, bringing them out of darkness into light. This isn't just spiritual optimism. It's a radical shift in how they function.
It is a removal of veils. For these seekers, the darkness of doubt, of self-obsession, of confusion, is just lifted. They don't just think the truth, they see and hear it. Everything in the universe, from the tiniest particle to the furthest galaxy, becomes, and this is a quote, a book for them to study and a scene to spectate.
So the universe stops being chaotic noise, it becomes organized information.
Perfectly put.
I find Jalaluddin Rumi's quote on this so illuminating. He talked about illusions, saying, "Those illusions, which are traps for saints, are the reflections of those with radiant faces in the garden of God."
But that's such a critical insight. It ties this whole first half together. What Rumi is explaining is how perception changes after a successful firar. The garden of God is the manifestation of divine unity, the source.
And the radiant faces.
Those are the divine names and attributes: mercy, power, beauty, which are reflected in every single worldly thing.
So an ordinary person sees a problem, and it's a trap. A saint who has fled their ego sees that same problem and recognizes the divine name being reflected in the challenge.
Exactly. It's a momentary reflection, not a static reality. They see through the temporary manifestation, the trap to the eternal source in the garden. And that ability to see unity and multiplicity is the stable perception they've achieved.
That brings us perfectly to the second core pair of concepts. The active physical practice needed to make this happen. Hala and uzla, privacy and seclusion. If firar is the philosophy of flight,
Then halwa is the training camp.
yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Halwa and uzla refer to the initiate's conscious, often systematic retreat. They dedicate all their time to worship, contemplation, purification, usually under the guidance of a spiritual master.
What's the ultimate goal of this deliberate physical withdrawal? Is it just quiet time?
No, it's far more rigorous than that. The purpose is absolute purification, closing the heart's doors to everything that is not God. The initiate wants to cleanse the heart of all the false beliefs, the dark thoughts, the imaginations that block the ultimate truth. If you want Rumi's insight, you have to first remove all the noise.
And the sources point to the classic 40-day period of austerity as the first practical step. In a culture like ours, saturated with constant stimulation, a 40-day intentional fast from the world is startling.
It's extreme, but it's intentional. The initiate goes to a quiet, secluded room, lives utterly alone, drastically limiting food, drink, sleep. The goal is systematic detachment. By intentionally neglecting bodily needs, carnal desires, the initiate forgets the demands of the ego. All their time is reserved for worship, contemplation, supplication.
This intense limiting of gratification connects to the discipline known as riyada, or austerity. For those of us in the West, this might sound like intense psychological training or, mindfulness. What's the Sufi meaning?
Riyada is the practical, physical enforcement of the spiritual will. It keeps a tight rein on carnal gratification. It forces the carnal soul, the ego, to renounce its evil impulses and submit to divine commandments. It's all about discipline driving the spirit toward perfection.
And the analogy they use is pretty stark.
It is, Be like earth so that roses may grow in you. You have to humble yourself, become receptive, become fertile soil before anything spiritual can actually sprout.
So this is not a spa retreat. It is a deep dive into discomfort designed to break the ego's command over the spirit.
Precisely. And this intense training is what allows the seeker to move from a physical room of seclusion to the ultimate sacred space, the heart. The room is temporary. The purity of the heart has to be permanent.
That feels like a huge leap. How do you make sure the heart, which is just constantly bombarded, becomes that purified space?
The initiate has to seek nothing but God's good pleasure. And crucially, they have to wait with the eye of his or her heart open for divine inspiration. The seclusion isn't about being busy doing spiritual things. It's about becoming utterly receptive.
Lama Khani Hussein Effendi captured this so beautifully. He said, "Clean the fountain of your soul until it becomes perfectly pure. Fix your eyes on your heart until your heart becomes an eye."
The heart has to literally transition from a passive organ to an active organ of perception. When it becomes that purified eye, it is ready to receive the king. The heart is traditionally seen as God's home. We have that powerful decree given to Prophet David. Keep that home empty for me so that I will be in it.
And keeping the heart empty is that continuous act of purification, emptying it of all the worldly attachments and desires that aren't centered on the divine.
Yes. Rumi really drives this home when he justifies seclusion at all. He says the sensible person prefers the bottom of the well, the quiet isolation, to the darkness people cause. That spiritual pollution is the real enemy. He clarified that the true objective is to seclude yourself from others, not from the beloved.
So the goal isn't to hate people or the world, but to eliminate the noise and the spiritual drag from unbeneficial company. But this intense physical seclusion can't be the final state, can it? Not for the greatest saints.
It's a critical training step, but it's not the destination. And this brings us to the highest, most profound state of seclusion, which transcends any physical retreat.
The ultimate spiritual integration.
Exactly. True. Preferred seclusion belongs to those spiritual heroes who always feel the presence of God while living among people. They have so successfully purified themselves that they can continuously discern the divine unity amidst the extreme multiplicity and confusion of the marketplace. They see the source of the reflection, even in the middle of a crowd.
That sounds like a staggering degree of simultaneous engagement and detachment. How is that even achieved?
They're described with the compass analogy. Rumi explains that they keep one foot firmly planted in the sphere of divine commandments, the center of truth, and turn the other foot like a compass needle round the entire world.
So they're fully engaged in life.
Fully engaged. They experience spiritual ascent and descent, but their core anchor never moves. This is the seclusion preferred by prophets and the great saints.
To be present in the world, but utterly untouched by its distracting falsehoods. But the texts, they include an important caution here, don't they?
A vital warning. God warned Prophet David, who was seeking solitude, "Always keep vigil, but do not keep aloof from your brethren. However, seclude yourself from those whose company is of no benefit to you."
So beneficial company is necessary, but you have to consciously prune those relationships or environments that are spiritually draining.
It's a selective withdrawal. And the warning emphasizes that you can retreat physically to a cave, yet still harbor worldly ambition in your heart. And that's just a deception. The true spiritual work is internal, which means the most profound seclusion is often maintained while you are actively living your life.
What a phenomenal roadmap. We started with the active philosophical journey of firar, the flight from the ego, and moved through the disciplined practice of hawa and uzla, which is about purifying the heart to make it a suitable home for the divine essence.
These ancient disciplines, they lay out a path for rapid spiritual growth. They make sure the seeker moves beyond superficiality, confusion, toward a genuine, unwavering awareness. True sight only comes after radical internal cleansing.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, navigating a world where your attention is the most valuable and fought-over resource? If spiritual austerity or riyada involves keeping a tight rein on carnal gratification, how might the equivalent austerity in your daily life involve actively managing the consumption of information, reducing digital noise, and intentionally limiting the sensory input that stops the eye of your heart from opening?
And the most profound insight here is that the ultimate spiritual hero isn't defined by how completely they withdraw from the world, how many notifications they mute, but by how fully they can see the divine unity in the smallest details, even in the middle of chaos, while staying firmly anchored in truth. To leave you with a thought, What actions, what relationships, or what source of constant noise is currently the darkness people cause that you might need to flee from without having to flee the world entirely?